Another year, another dilemma. What console should I buy to treat myself this time? Maybe an Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, or perhaps one of the new portable PCs like the Steam Deck. That's exactly what we're going to explore today. In this video, I'll go over all the pros and cons of the next-gen consoles, compare their differences, technical specifications, and of course, their prices. So if you're still unsure about which console to choose, this video is for you. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything, and let's get started. Let's start with PlayStation, which is closely associated with the console world by many thanks to the success of the PlayStation 2, the best-selling console of all time. This has ensured massive sales for each generation. By now, all of the key models have been released, from the fat version to the slim model and the Pro, although both the fat and the slim versions are essentially identical in terms of specifications, with only a few minor changes that don't impact game performance. The Slim is just smaller, no longer comes with a vertical stand in the box, and offers the ability to detach the disc drive. You can also buy the disc drive separately if you got the digital version and want to play from discs. Otherwise, both the Slim and Fat models are the same, so if the larger size isn't an issue for you, choose based on the price. Now, let's talk about the Pro version, which costs significantly more. You could say it's about half the price of the regular digital version, since it doesn't come with a disc drive either. But the higher price is explained by the increased performance of the graphics processor, which adds the new PSSR technology, essentially an equivalent to DLSS from NVIDIA and FSR from AMD. In a recent comparison, I concluded that the release of this console was mainly for testing PSSR and teaching developers how to work with it. There have already been cases where this technology broke old games, requiring patches to fix them. Plus, the technology is new and definitely needs more testing. However, it's still too early to judge, as the library of updated games for the PS5 Pro is limited. It's possible that as more games are released, we'll notice a significant difference. But for now, I wouldn't recommend this version to everyone, as with a little extra money, you could build a gaming PC. It might not have the same power, but it comes with Steam, discounts, free online, more on that later, and no limitations. Now, let's talk about the Slim and Fat versions. These are the ideal options with a reasonable price, and they run all the games without any major issues, absolutely the same. A long-standing tradition of PlayStation has been the release of exclusives, which gave the Sony fans a certain sense of elitism, since there were certain games you could only play on PlayStation. But this generation, the company changed its policy and they started releasing, albeit with about a year's delay, their games on PC. For example, this happened with Spider-Man 2. And it's understandable, as game development is getting more and more expensive every year. But because of this, I previously recommended considering a PC build instead of the Pro, as you lose nothing in terms of content. The same God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon, The Amazing Helldivers 2 are already available on PC, and there's more to come. But on the other hand, when you buy a console, you're spared from the headaches of Windows settings, drivers, and graphics in games. You just download the game, launch it, and play. So consoles are primarily about comfort, and PlayStation does it excellently. It offers a user-friendly menu, a revolutionary gamepad, which everyone's already talked about, so I won't repeat it, a thoughtful ecosystem, different subscriptions, and many other things that the company has been building for decades. By the way, not long ago, PlayStation celebrated its 30th anniversary, and we congratulate it. But here's the second side of the coin. First, there's the paid online. For console players, it's a given, but for new players, it's a shock that to play online, a subscription is mandatory, so it's an extra expense every month. The only exception is free-to-play games, where the multiplayer is free. But let's say in a game like Battlefield, Call of Duty, Helldivers 2, and similar titles, you can only play the story mode without the subscription, and only if it even has one. That's something to keep in mind. Secondly, games need to be ported specifically for consoles. For big publishers, that's a given. But for indies, you sometimes have to wait a long time, or they don't even make it to consoles at all. For example, a well-known game like My Summer Car is only available on PC. That's another thing to consider. There aren't all games on consoles. So PlayStation is perfect for those whose friends already play on PlayStation. That way you can share games or play together. It's also great for those who value story-driven games, which Sony still focuses on. Although in this generation, it's not as noticeable, but they've promised to improve and already announced some major exclusives for 2025, and of course for those who've owned previous generations, which is pretty much logical, since you'll still have your game library thanks to backward compatibility. However, PlayStation has had a long-standing competitor in the form of Xbox, and while Microsoft themselves have claimed they are not competing with the Japanese company, it remains the second of the two current stationary consoles with its own ecosystem, subscriptions, console models, and more. So it's about time to dive into the Xbox, which has taken a rather unusual approach this generation. First of all, the company launched two versions of the console right at release, the Xbox Series X, the standard version, and a slightly cut-down version both in terms of performance and price, the Xbox Series S. Unlike PlayStation, these are truly two different consoles. The former is designed for 4K resolution, offering a steady 60 frames per second and the highest possible settings. Although 4K isn't always native, it still delivers impressive results. The latter, the Series S, is designed specifically for Full HD. That's why it only comes with 500 gigabytes of storage. Games typically take up less space compared to the flagship console due to lighter textures and other files. However, even this limited storage isn't enough, and it often feels insufficient. But the real issue lies in the weaker hardware, which means some games can only run at 30 frames per second, while most manage 60 FPS but without maximum graphical settings. Nonetheless, this doesn't raise many questions or cause much irritation, as the Series S is significantly cheaper, making it the most affordable console of this generation. That's why the Xbox Series S is often purchased as a complement to the PlayStation 5, thanks to its full support for Game Pass and a few exclusive titles, which, according to recent news, may soon stop being exclusives and become available on PlayStation. This would leave the subscription as its primary draw, a sort of Game Pass station. The Series X, on the other hand, is bought by more demanding players who want better visuals, higher resolution, and the like. From the very beginning, this console has boasted 12 teraflops of power, which is more than the base PS5 but less than the PS5 Pro, putting it in a kind of golden middle ground while maintaining a reasonable price. However, in terms of visual fidelity, multi-platform games generally look the same on both systems. The Series X has a slight edge, but considering it costs twice as much as the Series S, that's to be expected. The only notable exceptions are games from Microsoft's internal studios, like Gears 5 and Forza Horizon 5, which can run at 120 frames per second provided the display supports it. Another intriguing feature is Quick Resume, which allows players to exit a game at any time without waiting for a save. Later, even if the console is turned off, they can return to the game and resume from the exact moment they left off. Some players are absolutely thrilled by this feature, while others find it less appealing, especially since it's useless in multiplayer titles. It's something you need to try yourself, but at the very least, it's an innovative solution. Additionally, Xbox clearly excels at running games through backward compatibility, supporting titles from both the Xbox One and earlier generations, something PlayStation can't currently do, at least not yet. What's more, thanks to Auto HDR and FPS boost, visuals in older games look significantly better than their original versions. While the PlayStation 5 Pro also has a similar technology called Game Boost, it's far less effective and isn't even available on the base version of the console. Meanwhile, these enhancements for older games work even on the Xbox Series S. But the main advantage lies in its technologies: VRS, variable rate shading, and native support for VRR with 120 Hz. The first, variable rate shading, is responsible for optimizing performance by rendering less noticeable elements with lower detail. The second, variable refresh rate, ensures smooth visuals even during frame drops. I haven't fully figured out all the nuances, but with the same FPS on Xbox and PlayStation, if you manually set 120 Hz on the Xbox, the gaming experience feels noticeably smoother. And, of course, Xbox is absolutely inseparable from Game Pass. This subscription service gives access to hundreds of amazing games, which are regularly updated with new and exciting titles every month. Just at the end of last year, it added games like Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Stalker 2, Indiana Jones, and many others. It also frequently includes releases from third-party studios. Naturally, this doesn't eliminate the same drawback present on PlayStation, the requirement to pay for online multiplayer even in paid games. But that's just the reality of console gaming. Microsoft is also actively promoting its streaming services. While this isn't directly related to today's video on choosing a console, it's a nice bonus. With an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription, you can stream games on almost any device, even your smartphone. They've even developed specially adapted touch controls for this purpose. However, it's still better to connect a Bluetooth controller for a smoother experience. Sony, on the other hand, has released the PS Portal, and a year later they added a cloud gaming feature to it. I'll make a full video on that soon. The key takeaway is that both PlayStation and Xbox offer the ability to play AAA games, while, for example, on vacation using a hotel's Wi-Fi, and it actually works. This comes as a bonus for console owners if you decide to purchase a subscription. Overall, Xbox, both the Series S and Series X, is a great choice for budget-conscious gamers. Not only are the consoles themselves more affordable, especially during holiday discounts or annual sales, but the Game Pass subscription also provides access to a huge library of games for the price of just one subscription. It's also ideal for those who enjoy a variety of genres, as Microsoft tends to release games with a broader range of styles compared to PlayStation. However, I think this advantage will soon become less relevant as Microsoft's internal titles start appearing on PlayStation as well. That said, the biggest downside of both consoles is their stationary nature. They're not particularly easy to take on trips, or even to move to another room if the main TV is already occupied. That's why portable alternatives like the Nintendo Switch exist. I want to point out right away that this isn't the best choice in 2025. The main reason being that the Switch 2, the next generation console, has already been announced. There's still little official information, which is why I didn't include it as a separate console in this video. Once it's released, we'll take a look. As of now, we know it will be larger, feature backward compatibility, and perform roughly like the PlayStation 4, which should be more than enough for almost all games in a portable form. However, if you're not chasing the latest tech and just want to play right now, the Switch is still a good option, primarily because of its huge library of games that have been released over the years. Nintendo has always been known for releasing consoles that are a bit outdated in terms of hardware, but unique in design. The same happened with the Nintendo Switch. It's not just a portable console, it's a hybrid one, and it even comes with a dock so you can play on a big screen at home. And if you need or want to take it with you to work, on vacation, or just outdoors, you can continue playing the same games seamlessly. There are 3 models to choose from: the standard model, which is the oldest, the Lite, which doesn't support docking but is the smallest and most affordable, and the OLED, which not only features an upgraded screen but also has some design changes like an improved kickstand. Which one to pick depends on your preferences. They all run games the same, by the way. Speaking of games, the main system sellers for the console are Nintendo's own biggest franchises: Mario, Pokemon, and of course, Zelda. I personally know many people who bought the console just for the new Zelda game, only to have it either gather dust on the shelf or be sold afterward. But there are plenty of other games on the console as well. Seeing the user demand, third-party publishers started releasing their games on Switch. So here you can find titles like The Witcher 3, Hogwarts Legacy, Doom, Wolfenstein, Portal, several Assassin's Creed titles, and a range of other games. There are even indie gems like Hollow Knight, Far Lone Sails with its sequel, and much more. These games work perfectly in portable mode. But there is one big drawback. Unlike stationary consoles where new releases come out immediately, with the Switch, you have to wait for a separate port. And it's not just indie games, but even AAA titles, many of which don't make it to the platform due to the Switch's weaker hardware. It's disappointing when you're eagerly awaiting a specific game, but it doesn't get ported. In the end, the Switch became a revolutionary console that you can take anywhere, with great battery life and an extensive library of games that have already been released. It also offers unique gameplay with detachable Joy-Cons, so you can play with friends, which is an awesome feature that makes any hangout with friends more fun. But on the flip side, there are always compromises. Multi-platform games look worse on Switch because of the weaker hardware. Not all games are released, and the ones that do get released take time. Plus, we already know that a Switch successor with more powerful hardware will be coming out this year. However, the Switch has one killer feature that keeps it relevant: hacking. This is a personal choice. Some people hack their consoles, others don't, but I have to mention it in this video. After all, hacking gives you the opportunity to play all games for free, and even overclock the console's processor and other components. But, of course, the graphical compromises and the lack of some games won't go away. So, to avoid these compromises, there are portable PCs. This is an entirely separate segment, and they are only considered consoles because of their gaming focus. That's why, in this video, it makes sense to cover them as well. Currently, there are many options, even if we forget about Chinese manufacturers who churn out new portable devices every year. The key player, in my opinion, is the Steam Deck, as it's the one that started this trend. After that, we have the Legion Go from Lenovo, ROG Ally from Asus, and even MSI Cloud. They all provide a similar gaming experience, which is portable gaming without limits. That means you can run regular PC games from Steam just like you would on your computer without waiting for a special port. And what's great is that this is true for every game. Even the most demanding and unoptimized games will run at least 30 FPS, of course, if you dial down the settings. But with such a portable device and a smaller screen, it's not as annoying. But compared to the Nintendo Switch, you have to pay for that kind of performance with shorter battery life. Each manufacturer varies, but on average, it's around 2 hours under maximum load and up to 5 to 6 hours at minimal load. The Steam Deck OLED, thanks to a bigger battery and a smaller process, offers a slightly higher battery life, about an extra hour to an hour and a half. Meanwhile, the Switch with the new battery can last around 6 to 8 hours of play. Other differences between the portables come down to their systems. The Steam Deck runs its own Steam OS based on Linux, which brings the experience closer to a console, with an intuitive interface and convenient controls. But on the other hand, there are games that don't run on Linux, such as Call of Duty, Battlefield, Apex, and other competitive games with anti-cheat measures. This can be bypassed by setting up a dual boot, where both Windows and Steam OS are installed on the same device. But not everyone is willing to go through that hassle. That's why we have the ROG Ally or Legion Go, both running Windows. They also come with their own set of problems. Windows isn't ideal for such small screens, and it's not a purely gaming system, which means it can load the hardware in the background, sometimes causing micro stutters. But the advantage is that it allows you to install all games, including any launchers. You can set up Epic Games for free giveaways, Xbox to install games from the Game Pass subscription, and of course, Steam is available too. So it's hard to choose a specific winner here. They all come with both pros and cons. But one thing all these portable PCs share is the new experience they offer, which can cure what is often called gaming impotence, a widely held belief. So if you've noticed that you want to play something, but that urge quickly fades when it comes to installing or even starting the game on a PC or other consoles, you might want to try out a portable PC. It really works. Another option to consider is looking at the previous generation to make the video more comprehensive. However, this is the cheapest option, and if buying the Xbox One doesn't make sense at all since the Series S costs about the same but is much more functional, the PS4 has a few features worth considering. The first one is hacking, and here, it's not just about free games, but about the possibility of modding them. For example, you can install mods like Fallout London, which is only available on PC, and even on Xbox you won't be able to play it. The same applies to voiceovers, textures, and similar modifications. Plus, you don't lose your license, as you can easily revert everything back and continue playing multiplayer games where there is still a large online community, thanks to both the huge PlayStation fanbase and cross-gen games. This allows PS4 players to play on the same servers as PS5 players, which boosts the online numbers. However, this only applies to older games. New releases don't enjoy such generosity, and of course, the main downside of this console is that no new games are being released for it. So if that's important to you, this option isn't relevant, but if you just want to play something at an affordable price, then the previous generation is still a good choice. A lot of great and iconic games were released during its lifespan. So which console should you choose? And honestly, there's no single answer. Each console has its own advantages, and you need to decide what's more important to you. I've tried to cover everything as comprehensively as possible in this video, but if we were to summarize, PlayStation is the perfect choice for those who love graphics and the exclusives from this company, which, while also being released on PC, will not appear on Xbox, unlike the Green Team, whose games will officially start coming to PlayStation. On the other hand, Xbox is ideal for those who prefer to save money or simply manage their finances wisely, not only because it's the cheapest console of this generation, but also because it offers a subscription with hundreds of games, which will take years to finish. Plus, the subscription is constantly being updated with new content. Nintendo is perfect for both travelers and casual family gamers who aren't chasing after top-tier graphics and AAA games on release, but instead enjoy cooperative games with family or friends. Plus, if you want to play other available games anywhere, it's a great choice. Portable PCs are essentially the ultimate solution where all games are available. You can also connect them to a TV via a docking station, playing like on a console, and take them with you on a train or just play in bed. But the downside is the weight and size, making them quite bulky. There are also setup difficulties, as they are PCs, so you need to adjust graphics, CPU usage in portable mode, and similar settings. The biggest issue is the price. Portable PCs are noticeably more expensive than consoles, though over time they pay off through game discounts or even free giveaways, plus Game Pass. However, they still offer worse graphics than stationary consoles, and their battery life is shorter than the Nintendo Switch, so they can't really replace either of the first two. Ultimately, your tastes and preferences will determine what you choose from this list. I hope I helped you make a decision. If I missed something, I'm sure I missed something. Feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll try to answer everything. If the video was helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next videos.